I don't know why, but that was giving me some Elton John vibes, and I'm here for it. I don't know. I just was listening to that. That was Elton John vibes to me.
It's
Either
very
way,
relaxing.
yeah, excited to be back talking about the NBA and some basketball stuff. A lot of drama going on as we continue the early bit of this NBA season. Oh, that was sorry, a hawk just flew by my window, terrified me. Um, dude, I'm telling you, like right by my window. Like I thought it
Was
was
he
going to
from
run into it.
Atlanta?
Oh god. All right. So what we are going to talk about today, though, obviously we got to get into the Jokic Morris stuff. There's an injury for Collin Sexton. We're going to do those in the warm-ups. And then last week we were pretty East heavy, so we will go out west and talk about some West things and topics and teams that we want to talk about. And then we also want to get into the Sarver report for the Suns and what is going on there. And that's how we'll wrap up the episode. So we started off with the Jokic and Morris situation. If you don't know what it is, I'm kind of surprised you're listening to this NBA podcast, but we appreciate you for being here. What ended up happening is Markieff Morris fouled Jokic. I believe they gave him a flagrant 2 on it, and Jokic didn't take kindly to it and retaliated in a way that was essentially a body check, and it looked pretty nasty for Markieff Morris. His head did like kind of whip back pretty well. And obviously things got really heated. Jimmy Butler was yelling. Udonis Haslem got involved, which Heat fans were like so pumped about. These guys do play each other again down the line, so I'm sure it is now marked on all the calendars. But the drama from that then spills into social media a little bit. Marcus Morris, who is Markieff's brother, went to Twitter and said, waited until bro turned his back, ... Noted. Jokic's brothers, who apparently didn't have a Twitter, now have a Twitter. And they responded saying, you should leave this the way it is instead of publicly threatening our brother. Your brother made a dirty play first. If you want to make a step further, be sure we will be waiting for it for you. And then Marcus then took to social media saying that his mom asked him to stop talking on Twitter, which I thought was funny as well. Markieff also put out a tweet, talking about how he felt like it was a cheap shot. And I don't think anybody would argue that Jokic's retaliation was a little much. The NBA announced yesterday, as of recording this on Tuesday, by the way, for anybody that wants a timeline of this podcast, the reigning MVP Jokic has been suspended for 1 game for the shoving. Markieff Morris was fined for the foul that was kind of started this whole thing, $50K, and then Jimmy Butler also got fined $30K for trying to like essentially take the fight to the locker room.
All of this is comedy to me, and I guess that's why
Yeah.
your laughter at kind of at the end of that is basically how I feel about that, because literally all of this is just hilarious to me across the board. And it reminds me of that Rockets Lakers fight a few years ago where there were just, I mean, that was way more serious. There were actual punches thrown, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So here's my breakdown. Markieff Morris was dirty for that foul, and everybody knows it. That foul was ridiculous. It was a flagrant 2. He absolutely earned every bit of that $55,000 fine. That game wasn't even close on top of that. So you've got Markieff Morris taking a shot at the MVP like this. You can see his knee buckle a little bit in that play. Like, that's a slow-mo hip check. Like, that was a dirty type play. Did Jokic retaliate really hard? Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, Jokic got his money's worth. He said, yo, if I'm suspended, I'm going out. I understand why Jokic retaliated, to be honest. I'm not defending the action, but I understand why he was frustrated. Again, this isn't a blowout game in the 4th quarter. So let's just say, like, there are shenanigans that Markieff Morris brought on as well.
And I would say, I would say too, and I don't know if you would take this into account, so disagree with me if you want, but, not to hate on Markieff Morris or either of the Morris brothers, but, there is a history of them being a little emotional in games, and I don't think Jokic was thinking that when it happened, but I think that comes into account when the NBA looks at potentially fining them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think past history with the league, I agree with 100% factors back in. I don't think Jokic was remotely paying attention to that when it happened. I think
I don't think it mattered who it was.
Yeah, like he was pissed as he rightfully should have been. I'd have been frustrated too about that foul, and he reacted how he was going to react. Now, I think the league did a good job here. I don't want to suspend him for more than a game. I think that would have been a little ridiculous. Like, if it was completely unjustified, like if it was just a regular common foul and, Markieff Morris had reached in or something like that, and Jokic just decided to just push him across the court unretaliated or just for no reason, essentially unjustified, then I think it's a little bit of a different story. If Jokic was the clear aggressor, then I think maybe you lay down a couple more games here. You drop the hammer a little bit more. Coming off the flagrant 2 and there being a little bit of responsibility for Markieff Morris, I'm fine with the 1-game suspension. Jokic was fine in retaliating, but you got to understand the consequences of it. Like the NBA,
Sure.
we know this is a retaliatory league. They're going to always punish that a little bit harder. So I'm not surprised, I guess, in the situation that, like, I don't think Markieff Morris should have been suspended. I'm definitely fine with the
No.
fine. Like, that was ridiculous. And if he does it again, that's fine. I don't think he should have been necessarily punished more than Jokic. Now, the rest of it is where it just extra starts to get funny for me because all this is comedy. It's just nonsense. Marcus Morris is on here defending his twin brother. We know the twin bond they have. They've been like this for a while. So,
Of
like, I'm not
course.
surprised there. The Jokic brothers just making a Twitter is also hilarious because I understand they're protecting their little brother.
Well,
It's just
and I would
also
say
like,
with them too, this isn't the first time they've ever done anything. Wasn't it during the playoffs last
no,
year
they
that
were
they were
looking. They
like,
want to fight Phoenix. Yeah, they wanted to fight
yeah,
everyone in Phoenix. So, like, the Jokic brothers are looking for that smoke too. Listen, this is it's a battle of titans because look, the Morris brothers are from North Philly. North Philly is not a fun place. It's a very, very rough upbringing. The Morris brothers are survivors in a lot of ways, being able to make it out of that place
sure,
and being able to put their families in situations where they now are financially don't have to worry about that anymore. Like, it goes out saying North Philly is it's not a good place. Like, it's rough. It's a rough
it's
upbringing.
violent.
So
Yeah,
is freaking Serbia, though. And that's where I think it's getting undersold here. Like, when Jokic was growing up in Serbia, they were fighting wars, like actual wars. Like, there was that whole 90s conflict in the Balkans. Like, we don't need to get into a geography history lesson here, but it's pretty nasty across the board. The fighting
hmm
in Bosnia, the fighting in Kosovo, and Serbia, in Montenegro, and all these other places. It was a lot of people died. It was, it's war. I think that goes without
hmm
saying. Like, genocide, war crimes were committed on all sorts of sides. Like, there were plenty of factors here. Like, I wouldn't mess with the Jokic brothers either. Like, besides the fact that they're all just giants like he is, that Nikola Jokic is a massive 7-foot human being.
yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen them? Have you seen pictures of them?
Oh yeah, no, I remember when they were
I'm
trying
not
to
fighting the
fight in
Jokic
the
brothers, bro.
playoffs.
I'm good. Y'all
That's
got
what I
it.
mean.
I'm not fighting any
Yeah,
Serbian, period. Like, that's just one of those unwritten rules that I live by is that I'm not fighting Serbians. Like, y'all got it. What you need, you got it. It's cool. I'm not saying I'm
well,
necessarily going to fight somebody from North Philly either. Like, North Philly people are getting brolic. But listen, Serbian warfare, growing up in North Philly, they're both
mhm.
bad. Serbia, though,
Well, and I think the other part of the whole thing is, and I saw someone on Reddit post this, so I can't even take credit for the joke, was that they said Jimmy Butler and Udonis Haslem literally took a whole lap and then came back and tried to antagonize after everybody could finally
yeah.
hold them back from
That was
yelling at them. And
Miami Heat. That was Miami Heat fan fiction, is what that felt like
yeah,
about how Udonis Haslem was going to step in and just clean up everybody. Like, come on, give me a break.
well, they said
It's
that's
on brand. Like, I understand them having to be a part of the brand and like this and sticking up for
mhm,
their guys and yada yada, barking and all this and all that. But it's like, I love Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was nowhere near the scrum when it was happening. He was nowhere
no,
near Jokic. Jokic was well on the bench by this point. But the funniest part and the absolute sheer comedy of it to me is that picture that the Denver reporter, and I'm sorry, I forget which Denver reporter took the picture of it after the game, the photographer, and it was the picture of the Heat, like, ready to go and mobbed up and clicked up, and we're going to go into the Denver locker room and we're going to be waiting for them
yeah.
after the game. Man, there was one security guard blocking them from that game. You're telling me a team of NBA athletes wants to fight these guys, but they won't get by the
Can't get
one
in.
security guard? It's just unserious. It's comedy, and that's why it's funny to me because no one has really physically fought in the NBA in 20 or 30 years. The league is better off for it. I don't want to see these guys physically fighting all the time. This isn't hockey. This is basketball. I want to watch them play the games. I just think the antics are hilarious because it's all posturing. We'll see them when they play Miami and Denver later in the season. That's when I'm going to see if there's any of that same type of energy. But that picture is hilarious because it's WWE posturing. It's not serious. They weren't going into the Denver locker room to fight Nikola Jokic. Like, give me a break. It's nonsense.
Well, and I would say, there's a few things here. Is obviously we now mark down when they play each other again. I think we mark down whenever Jokic has to play against Markeith's brother too. We'll see if anything happens and where it goes from there. Oh, and then also for that is it sounds like the Heat, and this is a throwback to a few seasons ago, or was it last season? No, I think it was a few seasons ago. They need to have like an underground tunneling system like the Rockets did. Remember with that?
The secret back doors, the locker rooms, and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, so
No, dude.
shout out to Aaron Ontiveros, who I just probably butchered your last name, but photographer with the Denver Post.
Yeah.
Aaron is the one who took that picture that has just brought me so much joy. So thank you, Aaron, for capturing that moment. I really appreciate that. Look, it's funny. The Twitter back and forth is unserious. I do think that if this starts to get if this escalates to a point where it's like, I don't think we need to see the Jokic brothers and Marcus Morris fighting in the stands either. Like, I don't think we should be
Dude,
encouraging siblings of NBA players to start brawling. But I appreciate
see,
it.
here's my thinking with it. And we'll talk about this, but there is a boxing match coming up that they probably could throw a few undercards on. And listen, I'm just saying, get these guys out there, or because for a fact, at least the Jokic brothers, Marcus probably won't be able to, but the Jokic brothers are going to be sitting right there during that next matchup that the Heat have against them,
So they already bought
regardless of
tickets.
where it is. That's what I mean. They're going to be there. There's no
Yeah,
doubt they're going to be there.
they should be. And listen, they're going to be decked out too. Because here's the thing. I ain't talking smack to the Jokic brothers. Y'all got it. Like I said, just certain rules you got to apply to here. The
I
Cleveland
agree.
Cavaliers are 7-4. They're one of the better stories in the league. Currently, as of recording this episode, are the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. And unfortunately, normally we'd be talking about all the positivity with them because just what an insane start. Evan Mobley looks like a rookie of the year type candidate. All their young guys are taking these steps. And unfortunately, a bit of a drawback this week when we get the news that Collin Sexton has a torn meniscus. So the good news on that front, not the type of injury that's probably going to derail his entire season. We should get Sexton back in the lineup at some point. But for one of the league's better or one of the brighter stories, I guess, to start the season, like one of the early surprises, this is pretty disappointing when everything has been going as well as it has there.
Yeah, I would say with Sexton, obviously averaging 16 points per game, 3.3 rebounds, about 28 minutes per game. It definitely sucks. We were excited to see the Cavs in general do, improve. And I think that's what you get excited to see with the Cavs. But this is definitely going to be a step back. I mean, I guess if you want to look at the silver lining is you can let some of the other guys develop maybe. Like you said, there was no timetable set for the injury. And I also haven't seen if they said he needed surgery or not. I think they're still doing some testing and evaluation of it. So he may not even need surgery. And if that's good, then, healing and time will just get him back. But you hate to see it for a guy who didn't really get an extension over the summer. I guess they weren't able to agree on anything, and so that's a big part of this too. So the injury might derail that and make that continue, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know who. I don't know. I'm hard to find a positive lining here because I just don't really know
Right.
who they're developing at this point. I mean, you're going to get more Ricky Rubio minutes, and Ricky Rubio has been phenomenal for them. He's been a great
My
pickup, but he's been
my
off the
my
bench largely.
my fantasy team loves that.
I mean, he's been really good for them off the bench. He's been absolutely stellar. Um, and that's the thing is I don't know where I mean it'll be Garland and Rubio essentially. I mean we'll see what happens in
Well,
terms of
and that's what I mean. Garland gets a little more run. Maybe you get some development out of him.
I mean, weren't you getting? I feel like you were getting that anyway with Sexton. And to me, I want to see how they play together. I want to,
Yeah.
continue to see them take those growth steps as they play more meaningful basketball. Like, and on top of that, with Cleveland, I think with Collin Sexton, just because he was mentioned in the trade rumors so much, and there was this back and forth of whether they're going to keep him, whether they were going to not. I think you want to see how it all pans out. Because to me, I don't understand why Cleveland was ready to trade Collin Sexton. I think you let it all play out before you get to that point. You know, they're just going to miss that opportunity a little bit for the next couple of months. With it being a meniscus, that is one of the ligaments in your knee that can heal naturally. I'm not a doctor, but I do know that much. So that is good. Surgery may not be an option.
Is
You know,
it
I
is
mean,
it a ligament?
um, I,
I thought it was.
I
Hold
don't know
on.
how to explain it. Like, I know it helps with the
Let's see.
stability of your knee because it's in there with
Well, it's like
the ligaments
it's
in
like
the.
the padding. Yeah, it's like the padding in between your knee. I
Yeah,
thought.
I think it keeps them together. Maybe there's going to be somebody out there, like Dr. Ned, for example. Shout out Dr. Ned is going to be listening to this and just cracking up. Um, I know it's obviously not like like an ACL, PCL, MCL, where they're the actual ligaments that make up the knee. Um,
What does the
ACL.
meniscus do? Here we go. The medical meniscus, lateral meniscus, and oh boy, there's a lot of meniscuses.
Menisci?
Menisci? Can a meniscus tear? How do you? No, I just what is a meniscus? Maybe this. Oh, Jacksonville Orthopedic Institute. Here we go. Have you ever wondered what makes up your knee joint? Meniscus anatomy? No, just tell me what it is. I guess the knee is made up many ligaments, structures play a critical role. Answer as quick as a C-shaped piece of soft, fibrous cartilage that provides shock absorption and cushion in your knee. So I don't think it's a ligament. It's kind of like a fibrocartilage, if I had to say.
Okay, there you go. Um, Chetty
You heard
Osman
it
could get
here first. We're doctors now, man.
Chetty Osman could get more minutes in light of
Yeah.
this as well. I mean, he's been coming off the bench because it's interesting with Sexton because Sexton is like last year he averaged 24 points a game. He's only averaging 16 this year. That's a pretty significant drop off, but the Cavs have been way more balanced. Like they just
Yeah.
have a bunch of guys averaging double. I mean, Evan Mobley, right now, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, Laurie Marketing, Colin Sexton, and Ricky Rubio are all averaging double figures. And Kevin
Well,
Love is at 9.9. So it's not like,
well,
he's really far off.
and I think, I don't know as of recently because I haven't watched any of the games in a minute, like this past week, but I know Love and Markkinen are out. I think there was something with COVID, if I'm not mistaken, the COVID protocols or something like that. So once those guys get back, it's interesting to see how it kind of layers out,
Yeah, Kevin Love's played 7 games. Markkanen's played 8. But yeah, I mean, it's just disappointing. I guess that's all. I mean, there's still no timetable. We'll see if they can keep it up. But this is a team that I think we had pegged to definitely be better this year. They weren't going to be at like the doldrums of the league like they were last year and have been. They had these good young pieces, but this was going to be the year they finally take the steps. Hopefully they can get Sexton back sooner than later and just continue. Because, like we said, one of the better stories in the league. They've won 4 straight as of recording this podcast. They are in action later tonight, so we will,
hmm
we'll
Hopefully they
see what
can
happens.
keep their win streak going. They've got 4 in a row,
Yeah,
which is technically the second longest. There's 2 teams in the West, the Warriors and the Suns, who have 5 win streak going right now. But I mean, look, Cavs is, I think where they are right now is hella impressive. It's awesome and it's great improvement, obviously, from years past.
well, Evan Mobley looks good too, man. Evan Mobley looks
Yeah.
like the rookie of the year. I know it's early, but he's definitely the front
Well,
runner early on.
and if you get Rubio, starting, he's dropping 37 points and having career best 8 3-pointers like he did against the Knicks, you're going to win some games.
He's a good vet for them to pick up for sure. Like
Yeah.
he knows his role. Like Ricky Rubio is just that good type of signing that teams like Cleveland need to make when they're making the next steps, and it's obviously paying off. We're going to see if it
Yeah.
keeps paying off because obviously he's going to be thrown into a much larger role now. There's going to be no coming off the bench at this point. Welcome everybody to the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
Oh, no, it's not pulling up. All right, I don't have a player tweet. I was
That's
going to
fine.
have
I don't
one,
want player
and now
tweet
it's not pulling
anyway.
up. Yeah, I didn't want it anyway. We'll just say it was Markieff Morris's tweet about getting pushed in the back.
Let me see. I'm going to pull up my NBA list right quick and just see if there's anybody at the top. We got anybody? Anybody? Nope, nope, nope. Oh, we got
There
one.
hasn't been anything decent tweeted in a minute other than the back and forth after the Jokic stuff. Reggie Bullock says remove the glass ceiling.
Wait, what? Like in general, like in life, I agree, but like what? What's the
he
context?
he just said remove the glass ceiling. When did he tweet this? He
All
tweeted
right, well, I
it
agree. I mean,
yesterday.
I hope everybody smashes through the glass ceiling. That's great. I
Does he have a minutes restriction? Because that could be fun, like
well,
some subliminal.
I was like, is he involved in some women's initiative? Like, is there something that we're plugging here? Like, what's going on? But I mean, I agree. Nothing wrong with that. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. I'll
Yeah.
read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Stitcher, Player FM, TuneIn, Google Play Store. I saw breaking news and I almost panicked for a second, but it's just Odell Beckham, and it's actually not even saying anything. He's picking between three teams. So thank you for that push notification, ESPN. I appreciate it. Um,
Mm.
Amazon Music, Google Play Store, watch podcasts on YouTube. Anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep. Like you said on YouTube, you can find us Driving Dish NBA. You can subscribe there. We also have the podcast being posted directly to our Facebook page. So
Yeah,
I'm kind of proud about that because I didn't think it worked and now it works. So there it is.
there you go.
Go enjoy it.
All the meta users. And now a word from our sponsors.
I can't wait. You know what I can't wait for? I can't wait for the time when we are doing this podcast in the metaverse. I'm just saying. We're gonna
Can
be in the
you?
metaverse with it.
I don't
It's
want to
gonna
be in
be.
any Facebook metaverse. I'm
It's not
sorry.
gonna be Facebook. It'll be like. We should start one called the Dishyverse, and and it'll be the Drive and Dish NBA podcast, and it'll be this exact screen of us, but it'll be kind of like an orb, and you can sit in the middle and look back and forth between you and I, and then like maybe some highlights behind you or something like
I
that
was going to say,
as we do the
you want
podcast.
to see my kitchen?
Maybe. Listen, man. I watched. Oculus put out a thing where you could watch like a few football plays from the sideline,
Yeah.
and I don't think they intended it this way. But I actually was watching the crowd behind me more than I was watching the actual play. I was like, oh look, those guys are talking. You know?
Probably didn't intend it that way, but
No.
hey, unintended consequences. You never know what's going to happen sometimes.
No. So we head out west to talk about some West teams that are doing really well. In the intro, we talked about two teams in the West that are actually on a 5-game win streak right now. We talked about the Warriors, who are 9-1, currently on a 5-game win streak, and the Suns, who are 6-3, also on a 5-game win streak. I think the Warriors, in a way, I would say one of the bigger surprises of the Western Conference, not because we didn't think they were going to be good, but I mean, they only have one loss on the season right now.
Yeah, the early returns on the Warriors. I mean, you knew they were going to get healthy,
Yeah.
having Clay Thompson back at some point, which again hasn't even been a factor so far. But they really did well this offseason in terms of making the roster make more sense. I mean, last year we saw Steph just have an all-time season. We know what Dre does on the defensive end. Andrew Wiggins, again, while probably not the player most had hoped he would be, it's not like he sucks either. Like he's still pretty solid out there. They had a good mix of younger guys that they maybe could develop. And that's really the thing is, I mean, some of these younger guys have just stepped up or they've just done well in the minimum signings. Like, for example, Jordan Poole is having a real big breakout year for them. I mean, I think that's probably been the story, in my opinion, has been his emergence. And I mean, averaging 18
I
points a
would
game right now, playing key minutes for them. He started every single game so far. So, I mean, I think his emergence has been the big
well,
storyline there.
and
But
and
even
and I
getting
would
a
say to that a little bit. I think one of the biggest stories with the Warriors would be like their improved defense. I mean, they've got unless it's changed since the last time I pulled up the stats, they have the number one defense in the league. Their defensive rating in 97.0. Um, their offensive rating is top 10, but having the best defense is kind of I guess, a surprise in a way for the Warriors because you don't think of them as a defensive first team. You kind of think of the flashy offense from Curry and Thompson and all that, but they've been locking it down. They've allowed a 12.4 fewer points per 100 possessions this season.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like you said, notable improvement. And again, I think that goes back to the personnel that they brought in. I think they
Yeah.
brought in guys who really fit well with this team, and they just nailed minimums. Like getting Otto Porter on the minimum, for example, a great type of signing that has already paid off dividends for them. I mean, bringing Iguodala back has been, even at 38 years old, getting a little bit of value out of Iguodala, who's obviously super familiar. Damon Lee has been great. Bringing Nemanja Bjelica, who, even though he's only playing a couple of minutes, that type of solid, give you 15 minutes a game type deal off the bench. Like, these are just good signings, I guess, that they make sense. And we're not even factoring in A, Klay Thompson, and B, a lot of the younger guys. I mean, Jonathan Kuminga, for example, in the first round this year, he's not really playing heavy minutes for them right now. Somebody like Wiseman. Wiseman's not even in the mix. Like, they could get on top of what they already have an infusion of Klay Thompson and higher draft picks sooner than later. Not
Hmm.
maybe not as if this season goes on, but in the next couple of years, like they have a recipe to win again.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest part to bring up with the Warriors is it in a way feels like they're back. I don't know, I don't know if they roll with this team or if we see them active for trades or anything like that to make a legitimate run. But I think regardless of what they do, trade or not, I think we're going to see them make a legit run this year for sure.
Yeah, they're real. I mean, they were, like we said, they were in the play-in last year and pushed the
Hmm.
Lakers, and I know they ended up bouncing out to Memphis, which is probably disappointing. But like we said, that roster was significantly worse than I think the one that they're fielding this year. I mean, at the minimum, I kind of felt like if they were healthy, they were going to be a top four team, but they're going to be a factor. This Western Conference we've talked about, I think that's the one theme is we'll really go through a couple of these teams today is that it's pretty wide open. There's no real bona fide especially with the Lakers faltering to start, that there's no real team
Wow.
that's running away with this early.
So all right. Just doing a quick little dive into some stats here on the Warriors. They're number one in the league right now for points per game, 115.2. They are third in the league for field goal percentage, only behind. Can you guess the other two teams? Number one and number two field goal percentage.
Field goal percentage? The Heat and the Sixers.
The Sixers is correct. They are number one, but number two is actually the Phoenix Suns.
Okay.
And I mean these percentages are like so like they're pretty much the same. I mean Sixers are shooting 47.8%, Suns are 47.5, and Golden State Warriors are 47.2. Like it's it's very close. And then on top of that, the Golden State Warriors number one for 3-point percentage as well. Like we talked, we're talking about their defense and how their defense is so good, but I mean, in terms of efficient offense, the Warriors are also obviously up there at the top for the league.
Yeah, no, who hasn't slumped with the league changes or the rule balls or new balls, I should say, or anything new here? One Stephen Curry, Wardell Steph Curry remains cooking. I mean, look, they're never gonna have to worry about offense as long as they employ him. Like that's the other just great reality is you got a top three player in the league right now. Like it's easy to
Actually, they are dang free throw attempts. Where are the freaking Golden State Warriors? They're 19th,
hmm?
18.8 a game, which is not that much. If you look at it, team who's getting the least is the Denver Nuggets. It's kind of funny. The Rockets are getting the most free throw attempts so far this
Yeah, we all
season.
have that pegged for sure.
Yeah.
So scanning the conference, we got the Warriors at 9-1. You got the Jazz at 8-3. Don't really think that's a surprise to anybody. The Jazz are a really good team. We kind
So
of figured them to be in
so
the mix.
to that, the power rankings is one of my favorite things to read, by the way. If you ever have a chance, I mean, the power rankings that come out each week on NBA.com really give you a good picture of each team and where they are, and at least each week. And then obviously they preview the upcoming schedule, and the obviously the first two teams on the list from the West that are in the power rankings, Golden State Warriors, I believe, are number two, right behind the Heat, who are number one, but then the Jazz are in the top five as well. They're the only two from the West that are in the top five.
Yeah, the Jazz are. I don't think there's really anything too surprising there. The Mavericks. Again, we're not going to spend too long on every team. We're kind of be running through these quickly. The Mavericks. The story for me so far is Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson is balling this year, and he is really kind of taking the next steps you wondered what it, you know, KP hasn't really worked out the way they wanted to. You obviously know you have a great one in Luca. You've got a really good, solid number two option in terms of offense, at least with Tim Hardaway Jr. He's been really solid for them as well. Brunson's emergence is huge for them. Like that totally to me changes the outlook of that. If he can keep this up all season, like
Well,
that completely changes the outlook of this team.
Well, that and you get because I know this because of my fantasy basketball team again, you get Kristaps Porzingis back, who came back on Saturday and got 21 points in 28 minutes. Like if he's coming in and able to give you that, I mean, I feel like we're on the fence of how we feel about Porzingis right now in general with the Mavs and with the league, and if he's able to stay healthy. But if he can come and do that with Brunson, with Luca, like yeah, we're rolling.
No, yeah, they completely changes their outlook for the entire season. Memphis is at 6-4. Of course, the big story with Memphis has been John Morant just putting up career highs and everything. But again, this is Memphis is a team that we expected to hang around. I don't think there's really any surprising things here. I want to drop to Denver only because of the news this week that Michael Porter Jr. is now out indefinitely with back tightness or a back injury, I should say, which is not great. Obviously we know how much he means to this team, how much money they invested in him, how good he can be when he's on the floor. The injury concerns were the only thing you worried about. I think just anytime you hear that indefinite timeline, I mean, Mike Malone just straight up said, "Yeah, I don't expect to have him anytime soon." So a team that's already missing Jamal Murray, not exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. But it's one of those things where this is. I know he's suspended for the next game, but this is the way that Jokic can kind of step up and be that MVP kind of guy.
Oh,
Be
I just
the
wonder if he
guy
has
for your
enough.
team.
I don't think it's. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm not worried about him stepping up necessarily. I think we know he's that. I just don't know if there's
right.
enough there. By the way, Indiana will be the recipient of the game without Jokic and without Michael Porter Jr., without Jamal Murray. So, if Indy can't win that game, you may need to reevaluate here.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I guess
No,
that's a
it,
podcast for another day where we feel about
I'm
Indy.
being dramatic. They're 4-7. They probably should be looking to reevaluate anyway.
It,
The Clippers are 6-4. Paul George. I mean, they've won 5 straight as well. Paul George, early season MVP candidate. I mean, like we said, to me they'd be the favorites if Kawhi Leonard was healthy. That's just always going to be the bummers. I think they would by far be the best team in the Western Conference if they were returning him healthy this
well, and
year.
and and Paul George last week, I think he won Player of the Week in the West, so he's doing his part.
Yeah, the narrative. Thankfully, it feels like finally flipped on Paul George last year when everyone just came to appreciate him a lot more. And I
Hmm.
think now, especially, as probably the only good thing in all this is that it's like everything that PG is able to do this year just remind people why he is this elite talent that the Clippers paid so much
Well,
draft capital for essentially.
it's interesting, looking at I mean, the defense. The Clippers have the third best defense in the league, but then they have the 21st best offense. Which isn't, I mean, when you think about the Clippers, I don't think about them struggling on offense, which I guess, with Leonard coming back, he should be able to help that. You got Luke Kennard shooting 47% from three, but, Bledsoe is shooting 35% effective field goal percentage, which is actually the worst mark among 141 players with at least 75 field goal attempts. That's thanks to NBA.com. Um, that's not great.
No, definitely not great. Not great either is the Lakers, who are at 6-5 right now. LeBron is out. Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook are in,
But Anthony
and
Davis apparently is sick, puking on the sidelines and stuff like that. You see those videos?
I did see that. I don't. Again, trying to hold the 20 game sample size or whatever, but I don't know, man. Russ, we got to have a Russ discussion. It might be time.
We
I
were
don't
we
know who takes him at this point.
My buddy and I were talking about this. Russ, I feel like, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I feel like because of Russ's play style, and we've talked about it, he definitely needs the ball in his hands. So you really need a specific team around him, and I don't feel like the Lakers are that. You know?
No, I don't think anybody that's serious about winning is at this point, which sounds so harsh for a first ballot Hall of Famer, but it's just like
Well, I would
on
say,
that contract, Russell Westbrook is a poison pill.
yeah, I'm trying to think of a team that, again, and I'm taking essentially contract out of it. I'm just taking his play style. I think you could find a team of bigs that essentially you let him run the offense and bring the ball up and do that stuff, and then his job is to crash and essentially get the ball to, like, say an Embiid, or throw it back out to, like, a Curry or something like that. Just because the Sixers are in my mind, I'm not saying he would fit there, but I think an offense like that could win.
Yeah, I mean, I think like at the end of the day, he's averaging 19 points a game. Like, I'm not suggesting
Hmm.
that Russell Westbrook is about to bounce out of the league or something. Like, if you run a minute, there are plenty of guys who would take him, or plenty of teams that would take him on a much lighter deal. It's just when you factor
Sure.
that
Yeah.
contract and you factor in the level of the play, it's just not good. I mean, Russ is averaging 19
Hmm.
points a game on 18 field goal attempts. I mean, his field goal percentage is at 41% right now. His 3-point percentage is
They've
25, and he's taking 4 a game. His 2-point percentage is down to 45%. Like, it's just not a pretty sight at this point. Like, he's very inefficient. It's very clear that he needs the ball in his hands, and teams are just not guarding him. Like, it slows down the rest of the offense too.
they've scored less than 87 points per 100 possessions in 64 minutes with Westbrook on the floor, without AD or LeBron. That's
I
not
mean,
good.
that loss to OKC is, again, I don't want to hyper focus on one game, but that's about as damning as you can get, honestly. Because like
Yeah.
OKC, other than now, I don't want to say they're fielding a G League roster. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on it, but they're not trying to win games right now. You guys blew a massive lead, and you employ
Right.
Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis, and you can't beat that team. I don't know, and I don't. I mean, you want to give it some time, and you hope that they can adjust. But just this roster as a whole, I don't think is working. It doesn't feel like everybody's bought in. I mean, they continue to start DeAndre Jordan for some reason. Um, but I mean, Russ's advanced numbers are terrible too. I mean, Russ has a negative 3.6 BPM right now. For some
Yeah.
perspective, the year he won MVP, he was at 11.1. That wasn't that long ago. Even last year with the Wiz, he was at 3.4. His defensive box plus minus at 1.3. His offensive is at a
And I,
minus 2.4
and
or
I'm
and a
not I'm
minus
not I'm
1.3. His VORP is negative, is at a negative 0.2. Like,
and
ugh.
I'm not implying that he is losing athleticism, but his game relies on that a lot, and as he gets older, obviously that'll start to go away, so maybe that's part of what we're seeing here.
Yeah, Russell Westbrook is 33 years old. Like, it's just jarring how much
Yeah. It was
worse they
quick.
were than his Washington numbers. And now, granted, they started slow in Washington last year, and we did see
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook like basically get that team into the playoffs. Like, he was
Yeah.
absolutely phenomenal down the stretch. Like, I mean, I think that's in large part what rehabbed his value is how well he performed in Washington after the season in Houston. I, we're already there. I'm trying to move on if I'm the Lakers. I'm actively trying to get rid of this contract and trying to get rid of Russell Westbrook. I'm already that sold that it's not working. It's just I don't think
Yeah.
it's possible. Like, I do
Well,
not
yeah,
think it's possible to move that contract right now.
what are you also going to have to send to potentially get that to happen? I mean, maybe a team
Nothing
like
that
the
they have.
Pelicans. Right, but maybe a team like the Pelicans or Rockets, who literally only have 1 win on the season, who are probably gonna have to take a hard look at themselves soon. I mean, the Pelicans have a whole different situation than the Rockets, because you gotta impress Zion, but, like,
Yeah.
maybe you're willing to do something there.
I would say Rockets still got to take a hard look. They're young and bad. I would say we knew they were going to be.
But
You got
that's what I
Jalen
mean.
Green. You got young guys.
But
What am I on Russ for?
if if you can get some picks out of it as well, maybe a first rounder or something like that, I don't know. Maybe you can
I don't
get
think the
something.
Lakers have any. Like, that's the problem.
That's
I
true,
have to
that's
go.
true.
I have to go look at their picks, but they've
Let's
traded a
see.
large portion of them.
Let's see,
I
yeah.
and all their guys are older. Like, we talk about this roster, no one there has real value. I mean, who are short of trading Anthony Davis? Who are you going to move on this roster that has any type of value? I mean, we're
That's
taking
fair.
flyers on what, Malik Monk, on Sekou Demboya. Like, what type of value do they have? Dwight Howard's 36, Rondo's 35, Wayne Ellington's 34, Avery Bradley's 31, Baze is 32, Melo's
This
37.
is
Like,
this is
this is
okay,
what you got.
so I looked up Westbrook trades just to see. The first thing, of course, is the Knicks pop up. Maybe the Knicks would look at him. I don't think the Knicks look at him though. Why would you want that?
No.
Why would you?
Why on earth would the Knicks want Russell Westbrook?
And then the next one is from Clutch Points. It says three reasons why Washington has officially won the Westbrook trade.
They already
So
won it.
there we are. Yeah, they already won
Yeah,
it. I mean,
they already won. The only scenario I would have said maybe was Orlando. Orlando, I thought if they had taken a swing, given where they're at, if they wanted his veteran leadership, and
mhm.
just to, but even with that, I would have said not really. Like I wasn't actively beating the drum for that. It was just a situation where I was like, yeah,
Right.
okay, it would
Because
make
then,
sense.
because then, I guess the counter argument is he's taking the ball away from the younger guys. Like I want to see Cole
Yeah,
Anthony ball out. I don't want to see Westbrook
with
doing
that
that.
contract, I don't know who would want him right now, to be quite
Mm.
honest. Like that sounds harsh and it's almost it's unbelievable almost. But I don't know a team in the NBA that should want him on that contract. And that's crazy to say about Russell Westbrook, but that's where I'm at. Different story if we're talking about a veteran minimum. I think of dozens of teams that would want Russell Westbrook. But I don't know. Not in the current situation. I almost
Mm.
made him my ballin'. He's not my ballin' this week. Carmelo Anthony's playing great. Carmelo Anthony is like the one bright spot for the Lakers right now. Is he's
Yeah.
absolutely been phenomenal for this team, which is again good to see. You love to see Melo hooping at 37 years old. And going back to the conference real quick, we're not going to spend too long on the teams out of playoff picture, but Sacramento's 5-6, Portland is 5-6, and then you start to get to OKC 3-6, Minnesota's 3-6, San Antonio's 3-7, Houston's 1-9, New Orleans is 1-10. We talked about New Orleans a little bit last week. The only
Hmm.
one, and I had a disagreement with my friend Chris Crawford, shout to CC, because he's a Spurs fan. And I'll ask you this because I posed him this question. We actually went to Magic and Spurs last Friday. And so I will pose to you the question: what are the Spurs doing? What is their direction? Like, what's the game plan there? Because I don't feel like they have any. And that's probably the only team in the NBA I can say that for.
Well, and I would say with the Spurs, I think we talked about this at the beginning of the season, is they don't have that notable star, right? Like it seems like just a group of guys that are really good at basketball. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not trying to discredit, but you don't
They're
have
three and
that.
seven. Are they really that good?
Well, I would say yes, from the standpoint that these guys are all, other teams would want them. I guess is what I'm saying.
I guess. Like, I don't. Who do I like? I keep seeing trades floated around for some of these guys, and I just don't really know who jumps off the page. Like you said, I guess that's my point with the Spurs. It's like yeah, I've been hearing about Deontay Murray and Derek
Johnson.
White and Lonnie
Yeah.
Walker and all these guys forever, but it just doesn't really feel like are any of them that good? I mean, I like Keldon Johnson. I think Keldon Johnson's a good player.
Hmm.
Um, Murray's averaging 17, 8, and 8. So
Hmm.
he is like the guy for them. So I guess maybe he'd be the crown jewel if you have one, but I don't know. I don't think there's anybody on this roster or there's anybody on this team where I'm just like, oh man, yeah, they got one for sure there. Like I can maybe say that for Murray, but they have a couple of young vets a couple of vets that they could sell at some point with if you
Yeah.
want to move on from Thad Young and Doug McDermott, like they've got value, but I don't feel like there's any direction. They've just been kind of listless for ever since Kawhi left.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's what I'm getting at. Like, look, I would in a heartbeat at this point take Murray over Ben Simmons just because Murray would literally be on the court for the Sixers. You know what I mean? Like that's I guess where my approach with that is I think they have a decent group of guys that are also all tradable. So the Spurs have themselves in a situation where nobody on the team has to continue to be on the team. If that sounds harsh, I'm sorry, but you can then use that to potentially decide your direction. Like maybe this year it won't be the greatest year. The record's already kind of starting to show that, but you're developing these guys and you have some vets that are all expendable in the sense that you can go get a young star for a team that's ready to go all in, which is why I made the comparisons to potentially a Ben Simmons like that.
Yeah, I mean they could get somebody like that, and then if they draft well, have the I don't know. It's too many what ifs for me. I just feel like
There's a
I
lot.
don't know.
Yeah.
There's nobody that I'm really sold for there, and I guess that was my only other question about the West. If you want to hear us talk about the Pelicans and how they need to get it together, you go back and listen to our last episode. All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before the bad. Justin, you kind of mentioned him a little bit ago, so I am going to mention him, be a little bit of my adopted current hometown homer,
Mm.
and that is talk about Cole Anthony here, who is just absolutely stellar so far for the Magic. Last 5 games, 15 points, 31 points, 13 points, 21 points, and 33 points. Largely pretty efficient. Of those 5 games, only one of them, I mean, really only the game against Boston where he was 2 of 11 from behind the arc. He was pretty bad, but his 3-pointer's been falling. And mainly the thing with Cole Anthony has just been the confidence too. Like Orlando needs that one guy who's just step up and just, take on the lion's share of the offense, who's not afraid of the moment. And here in his second, year, Cole Anthony has shown that he's not afraid to do that. Obviously, everybody loves the electric post game interviews as well. But yeah, I mean, averaging 27 and 5 right now in the season, 44% overall field goal percentage, 41% from beyond the arc. He's definitely been a bright spot for them.
Yeah, I think the win over the Jazz is just a big feather in the cap for what was going on, and obviously the interviews he's been doing, which ESPN then runs a million times, and you hear, was he saying bet when they were running through his stuff? What
Facts. He was saying facts.
facts? Yeah, when they have that, anytime that you're getting some FaceTime for the Orlando Magic, I think in general is pretty good right now. So I love it. I'm excited for him, and super happy that Orlando has a guy that is playing well and also has a personality that ESPN can run with in a way.
Yeah, they need that swagger. They need that juice. You want to see that in Orlando as these young guys start to take the next steps and form their identities and all
Yep.
that other things. I also want to give some flowers here, while because you brought up that interview. So that the guy who did the interview with Cole Anthony is Dante Marticelli, who has been, he's worked here with the Magic for ages. He's been their sideline reporter among other things. But besides just genuinely actually being an extremely quality, nice human being, I personally, and I don't know if you know this, but I remember back in the day when we were getting credentialed for Summer League, Orlando Summer League back in the day, and we had absolutely zero connects in the NBA industry other than just being a podcast from Jacksonville. Dante greenlit our passes. So I will forever be grateful to Dante in that regard. So shout out to Dante. He's a real one.
Will forever be grateful because those are some of my fondest memories in NBA. Like I wish Summer League would come back to Orlando. I don't obviously think it ever going to because
No,
now
it's
it's
not.
grown into its own thing. But yeah, I wish it would. I wish it would come back.
Summer League Utah is still going, so maybe there's hope. They just don't make money off Summer League Orlando. That's the thing, and that's why we
Yeah.
selfishly loved it because it's an intimate experience. Like you're really
Yeah.
watching the games. You're right there. It's a small gym. Like not everybody can get in. Where obviously Vegas, Vegas, it's still it's an arena at the end of the day. Like there's, you can buy first, second row seats, but there's
Yeah.
just not that it's cool because it's like NBA Twitter Comic Con in that sense. So like everybody is there, but it's also just like, that intimacy for sure is lost. Who's balling for you this week?
Ballin' for me is we now have ourselves a fight between an NBA player and an NFL player.
Oh
Woj tweeting
no.
this out
This
the
is
other
balling,
day.
not falling?
This is ballin', dude. I'm so ready for this. Do
Uh,
you don't like this?
well, Darren Williams and Frank Gore are fighting for what Justin is talking about. So let's say that first before I talk
Sorry,
about
yeah,
why I
I
don't like
should.
this. Obviously, D Will is a multi-time NBA All Star, All NBA player, one of the better point guards in the league towards the end of the 2000s. I mean, he arguably was the best at one point. Frank Gore is a Hall of Fame, eventually NFL running back who just retired, played 20 plus seasons, absolutely phenomenal career, phenomenal college career too, going back to University of Miami. My question for both of these guys, and I get that there's a payday in this because we have just decided that we want to watch celebrities and former athletes fight, and
Mhm,
which is
mhm.
hilarious because I think a lot of people don't watch actual boxing and UFC, and I'm like, well, why don't you want to watch the good people fight? But okay,
'Cause you wanna
whatever.
see someone you know get their ass kicked.
Yeah, okay. I guess my point or why I'm just like, and look, they're gonna get their like get your coins in that sense. It is ball. I have nothing against that. Get your money, but I'm like, both of these guys are good athletes. It's not even like they were washed up like bums or something like
Sure.
that who are looking for a check. Like both of these guys were extremely successful in their respective sports, made a ton of money. Like Darren Williams has north of $60 million. What are you doing this for? Like, I guess to my point
You
is
know,
like I would worry about the hit to my reputation at that point more than because like they both have great reputations.
well, and I would say from Darren Williams' standpoint, he has been training in mixed martial arts since leaving the NBA. He owns a Fortis MMA, and I don't want to speak on what that is. I think it's a training facility, but so to me, it's Darren wanting to test his skills a little bit since this is what he's been doing since basketball, you know?
Yeah, I get that, and
And
I just it's tacky to me. I don't want to because what if he gets knocked out? Then he's a meme.
sure. Oh yeah, he'll be a meme.
I don't want to see my ex.
That's why I'm saying we set up a WWE style brawl fight before this fight. You get the Morris brothers, you get the Jokic brothers, and you throw them in the cage and you say, "Yo, go at it. Let's see what happens," you know?
It's
And
not
the
going to
other part
happen,
that's I know.
but
But the
no,
other
I'm
part
saying it
that's
would be
balling
cool. Like
is
they could make a lot of money if the Jokic brothers and the Morris brothers cash in on that right now. It's like guys, get some money.
well, and the fact that the fight's December 18th, I mean, we're like a month away from this fight. It's happening in Tampa. I actually might try to get some tickets, see if we can go watch this in person. But
I do like Tampa.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. But that's why it's balling for me.
Champa Bay, if you will, as they affectionately
Ah,
refer to right now, even though they
yeah,
no NBA team, unfortunately. I mean, it's kind of like the deal with the Magic, because it's like the Magic don't have or Orlando doesn't have the other three, and Tampa doesn't, Tampa doesn't have the one that Orlando has. So it's like that whole Central Florida greater dynamic region thing, or
sure, yeah,
whatever they say to sell themselves. Falling for me is the Sixers because everyone has COVID. Joel Embiid is out indefinitely. Tobias Harris is out indefinitely. Isaiah Joe's a rotation player, but he's out currently. Um, and it's crazy. I mean, I guess it's disappointing too because Doc Rivers said, like, look, this is kicking their rear ends. Both Embiid and Tobias Harris are vaccinated. This isn't an Aaron Rodgers situation where they just lied to the team and then no wonder they're getting their butts kicked by this right now. But I mean, it basically chalked up two guaranteed losses. And give the Sixers credit; they fought really hard against the Bucks last night, and against the Knicks. They almost beat both of them. Like they really took it down to the wire. And I think if you're a Sixers fan, in a way that's encouraging. It's like look at your rotation. Look at the rotation right now. Seth Curry is going crazy. Look at our son Tyrese Maxey. 31 points against the defending champs. He had Drew Holiday on him all night. Matisse Thybulle and Embiid talked about this. The guys are bought in a little bit more, which reason number 9,000 that this isn't looking great for Ben Simmons. The team looks actively better and more engaged without him. That our role players are taking the defending champs to the brink. But yeah, I mean, they're not going anywhere fast until they get Tobias Harris and Embiid back in the lineup. And so for a team that was number one in the Eastern Conference, it's unfortunate virus timing as they've now slid all the way to 4.
yeah. It's unfortunate, but it's one of those things where it's give the younger guys some run and see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, already seen some initial returns there. So, who's fallen for you this week?
So this isn't basketball related, but it's sports related because my friends have been bringing this up that everyone's talking about the Morris and Jokic fight, but not this. And I might need your help with the names or at least understanding what the hell I'm talking about because I don't know soccer.
Uh huh.
Okay, this broke as of 4 hours ago.
Oh, so let
PSG,
me get this clear. So we have a fallen on our from a soccer on our NBA version of the stock market. I just want to make sure I have this correct.
yes,
Okay.
because this is wild allegations if true.
Okay.
PSG and France teammate. I'm not going to try to pronounce her name. She's in police custody on allegations of attempting to physically injure another soccer player who was on her team to eliminate her competition for places by having two masked men drag her out of her car and punch and hit her legs.
Um, wait, what? Hold on. So,
Yeah.
okay, so her name is Aminata Diallo. Okay,
Diallo? Yeah.
and hold on. So she hired goons to beat up her teammate.
That's kind of what it looks like via
Whoa!
the
Oh my god! I'm just reading this now. This is crazy. I hadn't seen this.
and so it's falling because
Oh
my
my god!
buddies are upset.
She went Harding.
It
She went Tanya Harding on Nancy Kerrigan.
so this is what my friends think it should be falling for is because we're all so intrigued by the Jokic Morris when this is going on, and this is like insane.
Well, it's not America. I think that's why we're not paying attention to it.
That's fair.
It's France. Like this is the League Un women's soccer. I can't say I have my pulse on it necessarily.
Right,
Um,
but it's such a wild story.
no, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm seeing this now. She organized an attack on her teammate who because she was upset. I mean, she was a
Allegedly.
rival for holding that position. Yeah, I guess allegedly she is in custody, but wow, that is crazy. I mean, the only time I mean, it wasn't nearly to that perspective, but it reminds me of, and I feel like good for Bobby Portis for totally rebranding in light of this because Bobby Portis is now like the mayor of Milwaukee and everybody loves him. Yo, you remember when
Yeah.
Bobby Portis broke Nikola Mirotic's nose in practice? Like he clocked him and like
When they
knocked
were
him
both
out
on the
for a
Bulls,
season. It was
yeah.
like months he was out for when they were both on the
Yeah.
Bulls. Mirotic is back in Europe now, obviously. Making a ton of money over there. Bobby Portis, like we said, the mayor of Milwaukee, an NBA champion, so it's going on pretty well for him. But no, that's crazy.
Mhm.
That's like that literally is almost word for word the Tanya Harding Nancy Kerrigan thing. Um,
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. Oh, I
Imagine
learned something
imagine your
today.
teammate doing that. Imagine your teammate doing that. Like how I mean, obviously if they were successful in beating me up and stuff like that, I'd be in a lot of pain. But emotionally, I don't know how I would process that. Like we're teammates, so we're supposed to be going to war together and you're taking these shots at me essentially. It's friendly fire over here.
That's crazy too. PSG is a big club too. It's not obviously like this is some random team. Like Paris Saint Germain is, they're one of them ones. All right. So Robert Sarver allegations have come out against Robert Sarver, the owner of the Phoenix Suns, among other things that he was extremely racist, he was sexist, he made comments, he oversaw a toxic workplace.
Yeah.
His wife also decided to reach out apparently and clarify with
Which
some of these employees, which I feel
as
like is a bad look that you only do when you're
a-
guilty.
as Charles Barkley said, that's like lawyer 101. Don't do that.
Yeah,
like
it's
what are we
it would
doing?
be witness tampering if that was a
Yeah.
thing. Um Errol Watson, obviously the former coach of the Suns, says Sarver used the N word. I think the story that everybody talked about is that he was saying, "Why can Draymond Green say it and I can't?" Which is just such a hilarious thing that old white people love saying. I don't think Robert Sarver is going to lose the team. I don't think this is a Donald Sterling situation where the league steps in. I think it's an extremely bad look for Robert Sarver, but in a weird way, we already kind of knew this, right? Like we already kind of knew that Robert Sarver was a bad dude. Like it's still jarring to see all this out because none of this is acceptable behavior at all by any means, and it's a bad look for the NBA, and it's a terrible look for Phoenix. So, like we said, they're going to be contending again. This is a team coming off their first finals bid since the '90s. Like there should be a lot to be excited about in Phoenix. And this is just a giant distraction because it seemed like the owner is just, I think we probably should bleep this, but it just seems like the owner is a dickhead. And it's been like that way for a while. And I mean, the reports coming out of Phoenix have always been toxic in that regard. And this is just this is almost confirmation of everything we knew. Like, yeah, Robert Sarver, I don't think he will, but should he sell the team and move on and give it to somebody that actually cares and will treat those fans with dignity and respect and treat the players the way they deserve to be? Absolutely. Phoenix fans deserve better.
Yeah, and that was my first thought too, whether or not it's the right thought or wrong thought was, man, this is the last thing the Suns need in a season where they're trying to run it back. You know, you don't need another off-court distraction. Specifically for Chris Paul, who now is kind of going through this for the second time in a way.
I didn't think about that.
You know, like Chris Paul had to go through well, I guess it is a similar situation, but it with the Clippers.
That Donald Sterling situation, I think, because we were doing the pod at the time. Like, I think that was
Yeah.
back in like season 3 or something like that when that happened. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we fully grasped how crazy that was at the time, and like how all that was, like how close it was to the guys just with that Clippers team just basically walking out and calling it. Like, we've never really seen anything like that. I mean, we saw moments last year. Like, I remember when, with Milwaukee during the Jacob Blake situation in the
Yeah.
bubble, where they just said, "Yo, we're not playing tonight." Um, I don't know if we'll see that here, but Sarver's owned the team for 17 years. It's a pretty thorough article by Baxter Holmes. It's even his co-owners are saying it, and that's, I don't know. To me, it's pretty damning when nobody is really sticking up for you here. I think it just confirms a lot of what we knew, and it's an unfortunate situation. If there were any dignity, then Robert Sarver would get the hell out, and he would move out of the way and give this to somebody who, you know, not everybody, just because you can afford it, deserves to own a sports team. I don't think
Sure.
Robert Sarver deserves to own the Phoenix Suns. There's plenty of better people out there.
Yeah, and I guess the last thought that I have is maybe this will have other teams taking a deeper look into their workplace conduct and how it goes, and hopefully makes it for the better. I know that there was a report that the Trailblazers were doing that because there were some other allegations, again, of workplace misconduct. So if at the end it can create a better situation for everybody, that's what I hope for. It just sucks that people have to go through it.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous, unacceptable behavior. But unfortunately, we see a lot of it. It's 2021. Anyone who acts like
Agreed.
that stuff's still not going on. I mean, we could do a whole polo. We never mind. I'm just
Well,
gonna stop
and on
before I get
top of
going
that,
down a
but
tangent.
but the counter to that is it's 2021. Why is this stuff still like, why are we still here? You know what I mean? This shouldn't be a thing anymore
Of course,
because
it shouldn't
we
be,
should be
but people,
better.
yeah, but
Right.
people are, and people aren't going to be better, and that's just the sad
Right.
reality of it. Is like, I don't mean to sound jaded. Like, I'm not trying to send it and the podcast on a jaded note. This is a really fun episode, but like, it hasn't gone away. It's still very much is the thing, and that's why like I said, I'm going to get myself in trouble. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. We appreciate you guys as always. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them here on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google, Stitcher, Player FM, Spreaker, Amazon Music, Google Play Store, anywhere you find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep, and find us on YouTube. Just search Drive and Dish, and you can find us on Facebook where the podcast is as well. Just search Drive and Dish NBA.